to another video feature of the Immersive Worlds Handbook. Today I'm at Universal Islands of Adventure, and just behind me you can see the recreated thematic town here of the world of Harry Potter. So I want to take you around for a tour of this interesting and dramatic theme version of Main Street. So let's go around and take a look. And I think it's important for me to offer at the beginning of the video here somewhat of a disclosure. I know there are millions and millions of J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter fans, and I could tell you from the beginning that I'm not immersed in those books, in that world. I've seen one of the movies, so I'm certainly not an expert on all things Harry Potter. But it was exciting for me to finally get the chance to visit the two Universal parks in Florida during my visit to the IAAPA convention in 2015, because I had heard so many accolades for this amazing immersive theming, which I do think is amazing and immersive. And I think my admission here touches on one point that's a bit of an irony. On the one hand, you have an incredible fan base. I mean, so many millions of people have read the Harry Potter books, have seen the films, have engaged with other video games and toys and action figures and the like. And so on the one hand, you have a built-in base to create some of that excitement. There's a foundation there, a story world, a mythic foundation, as I'll be referring to it today, here as guests come to partake in the excitement of these two Harry Potter theme lands at Universal. On the other hand, the downside of that is you have many, many experts. So you have people who know every bit, every detail, all the minutiae of all things Harry Potter, and as a result of this, if you get things wrong or if they don't agree with what details you've included, I'm thinking here of Peter Jackson, the Hobbit films and Lord of the Rings films, of course, and you had so many people that knew so much about the Tolkien mythology, the world, that they were upset with certain things that were brought in or details left out and so forth. And that's, I think, one of the challenges here, is that maybe you have to think about creating a world that's open enough that gives guests an opportunity to explore and to experience all things Harry Potter, given their own unique immersion in the world prior to visiting the theme parks. And on the other hand, you have to have certain details in there that will give the guests those little points of interest, saying, okay, this is this character, this is this adventure, this is this particular place from the Harry Potter mythology. So for me, this is something important to think about as we consider immersing guests in a world that may already be somewhat familiar to them. So something to consider here as we continue on our tour here of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Okay, and as we begin the video tour, you see the dramatic castle, which certainly acts as a weenie in the language of Walt Disney. The castle grounds, part of the Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey ride. One of the things I think you'll realize in this video is that they've really created such a remarkable immersive world in terms of the two theme lands that you'll be seeing, which of course are connected by the Hogwarts Express train, which, as you'll see in another video, is an entirely new take on the classic theme park train attraction or ride. Now, it's interesting to me that some of, like Jurassic Park, some of the theme lands around the two Harry Potter theme lands at the two Universal parks are somewhat dated as brands and media properties. Once again, we get the dramatic view here of the castle, and I mean, it's really remarkable as far as creating that picture spot moment. If we take a look at the map here, I'll be taking you through many of these. Of course, you'll see the Hogwarts Express, which is at the beginning of the Hogsmeade theme land, as well Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, which I mentioned as the incredible castle feature. You'll also see Ollivanders, which is one of many places where young people can purchase the wands, which is a key part of the attraction of the Harry Potter theme lands. And then there's also a series of other services you can see throughout you'll actually see this in both of the theme lands. And as we take our first look at the Hogwarts Express, you can see they've really thought about staging here. I just like the sense of space and scale. Crowded and congested isn't so bad, I think, in cases like this, because it adds to the excitement of walking through this town. And again, even though I'm not a Harry Potter aficionado by any means, I can certainly appreciate the fact that what they've done here is to create a new take on, say, the classic Main Street USA. So, the world is much more expansive than, say, what Disney has done with Main Street USA. And I would say this is not an entirely, one-for-one riffing off of that concept, but you do have shops and services. They've taken the windows and some of the spaces you can see just from the outside, and you'll see some of that throughout this video, and they've made them three-dimensional. They've made them performative. If you recall, there were things that have been done, say, at Main Street USA, where you could note hidden Mickeys or the names of classic famous Imagineers and so forth. So they've done a little bit there at Main Street USA in terms of the window shop treatment, but here they've taken it to a new level, three-dimensional and entirely performative. And you see some of that here. A real concern with staging. And just absolutely exciting. You look at the architecture, and I am absolutely certain for Harry Potter fans, you see, there we go, there's some of that three-dimensional performativity that we don't see, I think, in a lot of other versions of Main Street USA. Another version of this. And by the way, I'm not doing a lot since I didn't purchase my $47 wand. There are some kids there you just saw with their parents with a wand. I didn't have a chance to take advantage of the interactivity that's a key aspect of both of the two Potter theme lands. I think, as you can see, as you transition out of that city space, small town feel, you move into the other rides, attractions. Not huge theme lands, but very effective, I would say, in terms of creating that sense of immersiveness for the guests. Again, as I stated here, they've used sightlines and perspective and architecture and staging to really think about opportunities. I mean, look at the dramatic nature of the cityscape there, with all the chimneys and the very distinctive, Harry Potter-looking, cityscape that you can just take in and really appreciate, whether you're a fan of J.K. Rowling or not. And here's a second walkthrough. What I did was I took the GoPro and I made a couple passes down the main thoroughfare here in Hogsmeade. And again, just to reiterate, I think it's quite charming what they've done here. When you go into any of the shops, and I'll take you into a few of them, you get that sense of still being immersed in the Harry Potter brand. And of course, like a lot of other successful brands that exist in the world of transmedia, you read the novels, you could do video games, you could see the films, of course, the very famous films, all the memorabilia that goes along with it, all the merch, and then here we go, the three-dimensional version, you could step into the theme land. This is what's, I think, the most remarkable side of the transmedia convergence culture that we see in terms of today's new theme parks. So I think in some cases we see that the brands, the media forums, the technological forums, whatever they happen to be, are leveraged too much and it seems like overkill. In this case, I think what they've done is they've given fans, whether it be of the books, of the films, of all the merchandise and all the subsidiary media, an opportunity to experience the three-dimensional world of Harry Potter. And this is an example of something I wrote about in my book Theme Park, where there's a three-dimensional aesthetic form here at play that you cannot experience anywhere else. Typically, even in a museum you can't, because you don't have this opportunity for this level of scale and staging and perspective, and the opportunity for nuance, theme, and variation as the guests, as kids and parents and fans and non-fans alike go through the theme lands and have little nuanced understandings, opportunities to experience the stories, the brands, the characters, and everything that goes into the world of Harry Potter. And when I wrote the Immersive Worlds Handbook, I really was thinking of spaces like these. Immersive world, right? This is not one little space, one or two spaces. It's pretty major if you think about it, the fact that you can experience so much in this wonderful space. We might actually say that the ability to immerse a guest in an immersive worlds like this of Harry Potter at Universal doesn't necessarily have that many bounds. And an example here, let's turn up the volume. Yes, even in the bathroom, the storytelling continues as you have voiceover recordings of key characters and key incidents in the Harry Potter worldview, in the cosmology of Harry Potter. And I've seen this at other places. I've seen the more adult version of this, say at Las Vegas casinos. And I've also seen this at the Legoland Hotel in Orlando, where there's a little bit of fun for the guest experience in the restroom. And again, we don't typically think of the restroom as a place for immersion, but if you're going to continue the journey, why not? The point is that every moment the guest is in that space, he or she can experience that brand, that media form, that form of storytelling. Get some more perspectives here. You can see, that the designers are doing something right when there's this level of excitement as far as people. There's one of the wands there. Oh, great. Okay, and I think I'll show you a few examples of this. The interactivity, and there's a map that goes along with this. Brilliant merchandising plan if you think about it. $47 a pop. Kids can customize this. I guess a family of 4, then you're spending close to $200. But the level of interactivity, I think, is really key. It's one of the most, I think, remarkable examples of a new form of merchandising / technology. Works really remarkable, I think, in terms of giving kids an opportunity to experience the world of Harry Potter, and also for Universal and associated companies with the Potter brand to do some of their own merchandising, of course. And we'll take one last trip here through Hogsmeade, and I thought it would be interesting to reflect on, I think, why the 2 Harry Potter theme lands at Universal are so effective. And the first of these, as I've been emphasizing, is they've created this really immersive and inhabitable world, meaning that the guest, whether young or old, can enjoy all of the elements, all of the folklore, mythic structure of the Harry Potter world that has been told through so many sources. And as a form of telling, of course, we would say that storytelling, I've talked about this in the Immersive Worlds Handbook, can be something that happens in a 3-dimensional sense. Many reviews of the Harry Potter Wizarding World at both of the theme parks have suggested that they've been quite effective at creating this storytelling world. Interactivity, of course, is also very key. You'll see some more scenes in a bit of the wands, and how the wands, which are sold in both of the theme lands, are a very effective aspect, I think, of the storytelling, of the 3-dimensionality of the storytelling, and also of course, interactivity. The transmedia potentials. It's been a big theme, I would say, of looking at this Harry Potter world, because more and more we see that media forms and brand forms happen in different worlds and different modalities. We could say that this has become a key aspect of not just brand experiences and movie experiences, but theme park experiences, the transmedia potential. And to that extent, I recommend you go to the web and check out the Wizarding World of Harry Potter interactive website they have. It's quite unique. It's very stylized. You can see how they've done it with the wood grain and the scrolls and so forth, this archaic look, and just overall I think is quite remarkable in terms of establishing what I've called this life space potential, where you create a place that the guest can visit while off-site, while not actually at the particular theme park. And we can certainly say here, as we return to the themed world itself, that transmedia offers potentials for extending the storytelling traditionally told through theming through to other worlds. Now, of course, the elements of effective theming that we would note in any theme park or any theme space, I think, are also key. So you have to deliver on all of the necessary things. Think about perspective, think about sense of space, characterization, and the experiences that the guest gets while on site in either of the 2 theme lands are very key to delivering this effective 3-dimensional version of the J.K. Rowling novels, the films, and so forth. Focusing on the details here, the snow-covered distinctive tops of the buildings that you see in the films as well. Very key, right, to creating an experience that is thematically satisfying to the guest. And of course, all theming involves forms of variation, nuance, micro-theming as it's sometimes been called, where you want to think about delivering theming in every nook and cranny of the space. And I'll talk in just a bit here about the Marvel superhero theme areas and how they don't quite deliver in the same sense that we get here at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And as we think about the sum of all of these elements that I've talked about, again, I think what they've achieved here is quite marvelous. The cost of creating the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, $250 million, well upwards of $240 million. So it's certainly not a cheap undertaking, but it's one I think that is well worth the investment. Now it's of course upping the ante a bit for other theme parks to do this, and we can think of what Disney will be doing with Avatar and Star Wars in terms of their theme lands. I wanted to offer here that it's worth noting as we walk through the Marvel Superhero Island that one of the interesting ironies of retheming parks like Universal is doing with Potter and Disney, of course, is doing with Star Wars, is that your adjacent theme lands, in this case the Marvel Superhero Island, starts to look a little bit shabby. I think if you look at this theme land and compare it to what you see with the Harry Potter Wizarding World, you get a much different sense of immersion in terms of the guests' excitement and their ability to connect with the story. So an issue I think that has to be dealt with for any theme park that does this massive amount of retheming, as Universal has done, not just in their Florida theme parks, but also in Los Angeles. And I wanted to say something about the two immersive rides that are featured at both of the Harry Potter theme lands. Unfortunately, my videos weren't great, but Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts and Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey are the two rides that I think very nicely complement the storytelling that's going on in both theme lands. And I think what happens is that you can board these incredibly immersive, multi-dimensional ride vehicles and experience much more of the Potter mythology in this real-life immersive sense. And that, I think, was really impressive to see such cutting-edge ride technology that allowed for really full immersion of the guest in the story worlds of Harry Potter. And even for someone like me who is not a fan or aficionado of the Potter myth, it was exciting to see this level of immersion that allowed a total continuation of the storytelling that was going on in some of the other attractions in the restaurants through the use of the wands and all the interactive elements they incorporated as part of these two very rich and immersive theme lands. And right here you're having the opportunity to see the Hogwarts Express train ride that connects the two different areas on the different sides of Universal in terms of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So be sure to check out my additional video. I thought this train was curious enough as its own hybrid ride technology and reflection on the narratives and story world and characters of the Potter mythology that it deserved its own video. So be sure to check that out on an additional video feature. And of course the train takes us from the one Harry Potter theme land to the next, and we can look here a little bit at the attractions here at Diagon Alley, including a really interesting alleyway we'll look at later with some video. Next, coming up here, you'll actually see Ollivanders. So there are quite a few shops throughout the two theme lands, and you see almost a parallel structure between the two of them here, between the two parks. Hogwarts Express, we'll take a look in just a bit coming out of the train station, the old King's Cross reconstructed here in all its glory. Performance space there on the right, number 13 on the map. And then we also have a look at here the Escape from Gringotts, the second of the two very innovative rides. Front area to note, as you'll see, is the historic England section, London rather. And then in the back we have the weenie feature, the dragon, that we'll also take a look at in terms of some of its dramatic pyrotechnics. And then we'll jump here into the old London here, and I think it's a pretty charming entrance, if you will, to this second of the Wizarding World theme lands. Not a big themed area, and certainly keeping with Universal in terms of their penchant for, I've called this before, whether it's my visits to Universal Singapore or LA, of course, or Orlando, taking the traditional Main Street and flipping it. So we'll do a different version of Main Street, Old New York, or in this case, Old London, and so forth. And so there is, I think, that element that you see here. Again, this side of the theming, or this aspect of theming, I think is not as involved as what you see in the actual Wizarding World theme lands, because the storefronts, as you can see here, are not terribly interactive. Now we enter the train station. Again, a pretty faithful reconstruction of King's Cross station, the historic King's Cross station. And what's pretty cool about this, and you just saw some of my interior video of the Hogwarts Express ride, I think you create this sense of excitement. On the one hand, you're creating a necessity for the guest to buy this pass that allows you to hop from the one park to the next. And of course, if you want to see both Harry Potter theme lands, you have to have that pass. I think you'd be disappointed just seeing the one, and that's a very smart marketing move. That doesn't seem like a hit us over the head kind of marketing move, influencing our behavior as consumers. But the train itself, again, I think creates this sense of excitement as we're linking the two lands together and giving the guest a different experience in depending on the direction that you're traveling, from the one park to the next, from the one Harry Potter theme land to the next. We're coming back out here, and again, because it's so small, I'm giving you that perspective of what the theming is like. You could imagine full-fledged shops here. You could imagine a pub or something like this, and certainly get those on the inside in the actual Potter-themed area. But there is, I think, enough charm and facade here that gives the guest, a sense of place. And I'll talk about this in a second. But what was cool for me is that how they use this historic theming to hide the entrance to this first of the two Potter theme lands. And I have to say, actually, on first couple times walking around, I had no idea where it was, and you find this. And for me, let's take a look at this here. It's a really great reveal, actually. It reminds me of some other places where I'm thinking of, actually, the Venetian in Las Vegas, where they create this effect coming through the shops, and you see the very dramatic square there with all the performers and so forth. But this is on an even grander scale. And note here, as you come in, and to the left there, you could see adults with the wizarding costumes and so forth. So there's a lot of merchandising they've done here, in addition to the wands that the kids and the families love. The other thing I'll note here is that really effective use of colors. Again, the architecture, the perspective, the weathered luck of many of the buildings. So many people have said that what they've created here is such a faithful reconstruction of the actual places in the books and in the film. So it's again, it takes remarkable capital to pull something like this off. The other thing I would say is the fact that they have a lot of coverings on, in particular, this theme land, less so the last one that we visited. But here, I think what's effective is you get this sense of, I don't want to say claustrophobia, but the intent from Universal's perspective is to create a bustling marketplace. Here you see some of the wands, and I think I'm trying to capture that interactivity on the video. Again, for the guests, and particularly for young people, they could take a map and they could really take their journey and their experience through the Wizarding World and expand upon it. So it gives them something to do. It gives interactivity. You can see costume performers as well, security walking by. Just a really nice space. And I think the fact that they've covered and closed some of this is practical in terms of the weather, heat and rain and so forth, and certainly not as extreme as what you see at Universal in Singapore, as I recalled during my visit there. But this lends, I think, credibility to the space, the sense of the buildings being bigger than you. You feel as though you're inside a proper space, a theme land. Contrast this with the wide open and bland space, as I've addressed in this video, of the Marvel superhero theme land, which feels like basically a bunch of two-dimensional posters in a wide open street and concrete and so forth. This, I think, is much more enveloping in terms of its overall effect on us as we start to move through this space. As we saw in our last theme land, nooks and crannies here are created. We'll go through the alleyway, which is really cool. But, storefronts are interactive. Storefronts are performative. They're not just about merchandising. There's, this sense of a story being told via some merchandising elements, via the restaurants, the services, and so forth. As we talked about in the last theme land, both theme lands are relatively small. So you have to do something, I think, very economical in terms of the theming, in terms of the rides, the attractions, the services. Here we're going into the Gringotts money changer, the bank. Here you get a bit of that experience. So a different take on what Disney has called the audio animatronic figure, as you'll see here going in the door. Okay, and as we walk inside, I should note that in some of the cases, because we're talking about relatively small spaces, in this case, this bank, often there was a queue, and so they had to wait to let a certain number of people in. And that's certainly one challenge, right, when you have smaller venues like this within the theme lands. But overall, guests seemed patient in terms of waiting, and you could exchange for the local currency. And all the Potter fans out there, you can insert the name of that here. Again, I'm not a Harry Potter aficionado, but what I will say about this is a cool use of technology, robotics, audio animatronics, using Disney's name for it, and an opportunity for picture moments, as you see here, an opportunity for a bit of storytelling on a hot Orlando day, an opportunity to come into an air-conditioned space as well. So I think all in all, one of many effective spaces that also serve to break up the overall storytelling that you get in the two theme lands. So you can choose between the rides, you can choose between attractions like this that are not thrilling but are part of a overall three-dimensional storytelling effort. So for me, that's very important in a space like the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, because you can give the guest theme and variations in terms of the experiences, products, services, opportunities, thrills, attractions, and food. Let's see here. We're going to go into another. I was really impressed with the merchandising here. I think merchandising is an area, frankly, for all theme parks where there can be improvement. I think too often, the joke is you exit through the gift shop, and so you get off the ride. I remember working at Astroworld, often at the Batman ride, and you get off the ride, and then here's the gift shop. And I think it, in some cases, seems too obvious and seems too much in the face of this consumer behavior, telling the guest he or she must purchase things and so forth. So here you can see, and I don't have maybe enough video of the top there, but you can see they've done a lot in terms of the interior spaces of these stores. They've kept the consistency of theming, interesting design to keep that performativity that I've talked about throughout this video. Taking another walk here through the main thoroughfare. Not as busy as other days from what I've read, so certainly I got a little bit lucky here visiting. There were times during the day at Islands of Adventure, at both of the Universal resorts, where I felt that it certainly was crowded, but nothing that was unbearable. Again, you get a sense of the great sightlines. We're coming up here on one of the attractions, and I'll show you some of the. I don't think I have the fire breathing on video, but show you or let you hear some of that sound and some of the experience of that. Again, using the Disney vernacular, the weenie, right, the big attraction that attracts guests. Not just limited to theme parks. The Las Vegas Strip, of course, has so much promoted this with, in a sense, you say this is another version of the Bellagio fountains, but a dragon, another version of, the Mirage volcano. So it's an opportunity to move pedestrian traffic, to tell your story in that three-dimensional sense, and to also give the guest a sense of excitement as he or she goes throughout the wizarding world of Harry Potter. So an opportunity for furthering some of the thematic storytelling that's going on here at the park. We continue the walk here through Diagon Alley, and the multiple passes as I walked up and down the thoroughfare, I think, give us an opportunity to really see some of the theming and why this is, I think, such a remarkable effort in terms of creating immersive storytelling for the guest. And actually, it was occurring to me as I'm watching the video I shot here from Orlando that the level of theming here is so interesting and so immersive and so evocative that I was thinking about some of the remaining themed casinos in Las Vegas here as we will enter a few more spaces, and how often the theming isn't at this level. Again, this is a quarter of $1 billion that was spent, but certainly, a casino in Vegas could be upwards of $1 billion. But I think what is interesting to me about that is often, even a casino that is created, say, like the Paris or the Venetian, the emphasis has to be, of course, on a variety of spaces, the scale of spaces. You think about a casino like the Palazzo in Las Vegas that is actually one of the largest, I think the largest buildings in the world in terms of total space. And so you're thinking about convention, you're thinking about concert, boxing venues, you're thinking about restaurants, of course, all the hotels, all the rooms and so forth. And so maybe there isn't that opportunity to create theming on this scale, but just imagine if you took a few of the Vegas casinos that have the evocative theming of a place and culture and people, and if you could create more of this type of environment. So you could take your bars and your restaurants and your shops and your various venues and transform them with this type of theming that I've been describing as so evocative and immersive and a form of storytelling. Of course, a challenge with that is this. We've talked about transmedia. You have the narrative backdrop. You have the J.K. Rowling stories, which are so remarkable in their own right. You have the movies. You have the recognizable actors from the movies and so forth. As a result of that, of course, you have all this foundation ahead of time, this background information, if you will. The guest can bring that into the space. The guest can further be transformed via some of the transmedia we talked about, whether it be these wands, whether it be the interactive website and some of the ancillary stuff that go along with these experiences. So that's probably a challenge, right? Is to say a themed casino would need more storytelling of some sort to deliver on this, because we know that theming is never just materiality. It is narrative, and I would say in some cases it should be at least over half, 50% or more narrative, because that gives it the depth, the sense of being, the sense of purpose, all the dimensions that the guest will take in and recognize as part of that suspension of disbelief that is so key in other forms of narrative, more typical to the page, and as well in the world of filmmaking and immersive video games. See some more wand work there, interactivity on the left. Again, I think by having the wands and these different performative things going on at the storefronts, you're creating, I want to say magic, but you're creating opportunities for storytelling, for enrichment, for further variations of themes and elements and so forth throughout the experience. I will say I haven't looked into any of the multimedia elements that could extend storytelling as well and give the guest a further sense of place and so forth, and narrative. And I'm thinking of the sort that we saw at the World Expo 2015 in Milan, which had an app that allowed various pavilions to build on the stories that they were telling, the messages that they were giving in terms of the environment and foodways. It's another cool element here, these jellied eels movement. You take the traditional, as I've said throughout this video, you take the traditional storefronts of Main Street USA, and what do you do to them? You make them three-dimensional, and certainly Disney had some of that, but you bring them alive, right? So you have robotics, you have certain interactive moments that are a part of these storefronts. It lends, I think, such a sense of credibility and authenticity that is necessary because of that point I just mentioned, that narrativity from the Rowling stories and the movies that establishes for the guests that sensibility about the story itself and its significance. And as usual, I'm taking a video and also trying to snap stills, but you could see the guest there, and she was just taking basically a selfie, probably a video, it seemed to me, that is, again, reflective of that fact that they've created this interactivity and performativity at the storefronts. Now here we go here. You can see, again, the dragon, which I don't think is going to be breathing fire, unfortunately, for our sake as we're watching this. But nonetheless, we can take a look here and see why this is another, I think, significant aspect here of Diagon Alley in terms of giving people something that is a form of spectacle, as I addressed earlier, that is reminiscent of other weenies, whether at Disney theme parks, Cinderella Castle, or those interactive versions on the Las Vegas Strip. So further creating, I think, moments and opportunities for storytelling and performance among the many other forms here that we see in this first of two Harry Potter theme lands at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. I'll take another tour here, and I'll show you a few more of the shop windows, and then we'll go into Nocturne Alley, which I think is a pretty remarkable part of this theme land. You see more of the wands, so again, $47 a pop, but brilliant from a merch standpoint. I'm always amazed when I see surprising forms of merchandising that are, in this case, part of the storytelling, part of the theming. So real kudos there to their merchandising departments, whoever created. You see a map right there. There's our interactive map with our wand. So good shot of that. Again, I didn't get to try any of that, but I do have some video moments that we've been looking at throughout this video. I'll take a spin here down the thoroughfare many times, as you've seen, but I think well worth the time here, because we do get an opportunity to see the marvel that has gone into creating the theming here. And we'll take a little closer look here at some of the details of the storefronts here. Again, interactivity with the clock there. Really nice choices, I think, in terms of design. Signage, colors, the weathered look of many of the exteriors. Some of these being false fronts, of course, but still effective in conveying a sense of place here to the guest. As I'm continuing to take some still photos here, one thing you could point out here is that when you create a space like this, and I'm thinking a little bit of how some of Las Vegas casinos operate, you can disperse a crowd, you can use elements like the wands here, the interactive elements, you can use visual elements, as we talked about with some of the weenies, and you can create a sense of the hustle and bustle that they describe in much of their literature. We're taking a look here at some of the interactive elements. And we're very close, of course, to where we entered a fountain effect here. So yet another one of these elements where you can take the crowd and move it throughout the space, create a sense of excitement, curate the themes and variations that are so important, I believe, in offering something that is exciting to the guest. So before we enter Nocturne Alley, I wanted to show you a few more elements here I thought were pretty interesting. One more interactive element, because again, I didn't get a chance to try out any of the wand technology, but you can see here a family is experimenting with it. Pretty cool, right? So they've attached this to a water feature, so there's interactivity, there's a physical, haptic, dimension to it involving touch and the water splashing on you, and there's a technological side. And I think this is the key with how they've been so successful with this approach to technology. It doesn't seem artificial, right? The wand has a physicality to it. They look like the wands you might see in magic stories and, of course, in the Harry Potter books and movies. But they have another purpose, and so there's a high technology side to it, but that technology is disguised by their authenticity, their sense of being connected as part of the Potter cosmology. Now we enter the alley, and for me this was one of the coolest features I've seen in a long time. I just think it's cool, it's mysterious, it's dark. Elements of the dark ride, of course, not a ride. You're walking through it. You can explore on your own. You'll be led to a series of different shops that I believe I'll show you here in a second. The lighting effects are really cool. And for me, what's nice about this is, it's an opportunity to really break with the hustle and bustle, the energy, the colors, the light, all the sort of elements that the guests are seeing in the other theme lands. And in this case, there's a more subdued and mysterious approach to telling this three-dimensional storytelling. You may not get all of this clearly just because of some of the low light issues here, but I think you'll get a sense of how enveloping this alleyway is and why this is such an effective use. There you go. There's a little virtual window you could see in effect. Just really, really remarkable, I think, in terms of giving the guests something entirely different and very much atmospheric, and atmospheric in a different sense that he or she is experiencing some of the feelings and sights and sensory orders that they might be getting just outside of this space, as we saw on the thoroughfare that I walked up and down quite a few times throughout this video. So let's look at a few more of these elements here as we walk through. I think the other thing that's going on here that I'm reminded of as we walked into Diagon Alley was the fact that you could experience a threshold effect, so in this case light to dark and dark to light. So it's another, I think, effective way to create a sense of place. Little elements, the lights, again the windows, there's interactivity throughout. There was a bench there as well. These are the small details, I think, that make transform an ordinary space into something entirely remarkable, a space in which a guest can involve the suspension of disbelief as he or she experiences the world, in this case the world of Harry Potter and all that it entails in its richness and cosmological orders and so forth. Here's another really cool shop we'll take a look at here. Further technological and interactive elements. And so I think what we're clearly seeing here is that regardless of where you are in either of the theme lands at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, there's an overall unified approach to theming, to design, to narrative storytelling in three-dimensional space, signage, the smallest elements as we've also, grown accustomed to in Disney theme parks in terms of the work of Imagineering. So much of the significance of what happens in new theme parks and new theme spaces, I think, happens prior to, of course, anything we see as a guest. It's the planning, it's the design, it's the execution, it's the constant transformation and change of the space, because, of course, there's always, in this competitive world of entertainment, always an opportunity to change things up a bit and to make it more exciting for the guests. So I hope you enjoy this opportunity today to really take a look at the excitement of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Hopefully you'll have a chance to visit it on your own if you haven't so far. And as we go back into light here, we can consider some of the remarkable storytelling here at Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios. Hope you enjoyed the video feature today here at Universal Studios Island of Adventure and Universal Studios Florida. Please come back for additional video features of the Immersive Worlds Handbook.